My name is Mark Leese. I'm the production designer on the film, and I suppose essentially I'm responsible for the look of the movie. The thing is, to do something in the early 80s means that, obviously we have to look at the sort of social sort of hierarchy of our characters. Who are they? What's their backstories? What are their upbringings? What's their sort of lifestyles? How have they got to where they are? How have they got to that point in 1983? And I spend a lot of time looking into that. I have lots of discussions with the director and others and Wardrobe, etc., about just that. But so for me, or for Shane and I rather, what we decided was that it isn't. Although it's set in 1983, most of the characters who inhabit the film are sort of living in the end of the 70s in a way. So the room that we're sort of sitting in at the moment, the set we're sitting in just now, it's much more a sort of 70s feel, because what we're saying is that the family who are here wouldn't have redecorated bang on with that sort of 1983's latest wallpapers, latest fashions. So you have a really exciting mix of objects from maybe a number of periods in a way, and a number of sort of points in time, as well as having bang on contemporary things as well. So we have magazines, newspapers, lots of smalls that say 1983, and then everything else that surrounds it is from another period. Well, one of the things that you have to sort of look out for in a way is, as you quite rightly say, there are sort of 4 main living rooms, and we're in these spaces quite a lot. So the first thing that has to be clear to the audience, that you have to be very conscious of as a designer, is to make sure that none of these spaces could be confused with the next one. Because obviously the film has to be edited, and the way it could be cut together means that scenes might you could jump quickly from one living room to the next. So I want to make sure that the audience always know which environment they're in. That's kind of, I suppose, fairly sort of basic element to it. So then what we do is we look at the characters, we decide on like I said, sort of a social economical history to these people. And basically what we do then is we sort of divide them up, and we look at all the spaces at the same time. We decide on elements that we want to place in one space, and we make sure that we don't repeat them. Or if we do repeat them, then it's a very conscious thing. We're repeating things for a reason. So we're sitting here in the character of Sean and Synth's house, and so what we tried to say about this house was that they had inherited this space, and by that I mean that they'd maybe lived in this house for just a couple of years, and that they've not redecorated or anything like that. They've just come in with what few belongings they have, and they've just made a home in an existing space. Whereas you might go to another character's house and they might have a lot more money or a different background. You might sort of say, let's imply that this family, that everything we see is this family's, that they've put it here, that they have decorated themselves. So really, that, if that makes any sense to you at all, then what it is that we sort of juggle all these sort of very simple elements in a way, but you sort of manipulate them. So for me, then we had the oldest looking house, the most 70s feel about it was Sean's house. And then we go to Gadget's house, which Shane and I decided that since we never met the parents of the house, that we could have a lot of fun with it and just sort of imply that they've kind of got sort of crazy hobby of collecting sort of odd items. And so I don't know how we actually arrived in it, but I think I'd sort of come up with this idea of a stuffed bird at one point, and it sort of grew from there and kind of got sort of sillier and sillier in a way, but that was where the sort of textures come in and the fun part sort of come in. So we decided to go down that kind of strange route with that house, which was great fun to do. Then we had it wasn't a living room, but it was a bedroom. We go into Milky's bedroom, and one of the things I was interested in doing there was that because Milky and Combo are sort of opposites, and there's sort of the black and the white thing, and the sort of two-tone element to it, I actually decided there to give them the same colour living space, really, to sort of play a little sort of psychological trick there, which, it doesn't really matter if the audience don't get it, but it's a sort of texture that we can use to work on how to inhabit the spaces, with our sort of properties, etc. So I painted both those rooms blue because we decided that in a way maybe both these characters have got more in common than not. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but it just seemed an interesting way to do it, rather than constantly think of another mad colour or another. Not mad colour, but another colour or another. Oh, we've used blue, we can't use that again. That's of no interest to me. So we decided to do Combo and Milky's pretty much in the same colour, although one's dirty and grubby and one's clean and sort of orderly. So yeah. So again, there we use a bit of sort of repetition, I suppose, in the colours. And then I think finally we go to. You're going to prompt me. Whose house? Some Good Smells house. That's right. The Good Smells house, and. there we just had a bit of fun. We just sort of said, well, this family, we'll say they're kind of a bit wealthier than the rest, have a bit more sort of disposable cash. They would have sort of the latest kind of gadgets, possibly, or slightly more modern tellies, etc. And that we decided their house would be clean and crisp and very much have the hand of the mother in the house, so that we went for sort of stock and trade kind of feel in a way. We went for sort of peach sofa, which peach was very big in the early sort of 80s, all these peach colours and sort of pale pinks and things. So we went for the idea that everything in that house was chosen by the mother, and that included Smel's bedroom, that apart from her own sort of collection of like records and books, etc., that everything else was picked by Mummy. And we quite like that idea. So again, it gives a different sort of texture to it, a different feel to it. And in a way, when you see that house, it's the smartest in the sense that the wallpaper's are dearer and the curtains are actually quite expensive. They cost me a fortune and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so it's quite good fun. But you do sort of sit down and make a list. It doesn't just sort of pop into your head. You have lots of conversations and meetings with Shane and whoever else it might involve about these things, because it's important that we're all telling the same story in the same way. The shop was a tricky one because we needed a real location, because we wanted to film the interior and exterior at the same time, and Richard, the locations manager, spent an awful long time driving around, going into lots of shops and etc. And just nothing. I mean, he was really starting to get quite frustrated at the whole thing. It just wasn't happening, because we were looking at shops that we could take over and remove things, and it just wasn't going to work that way. So in the end, we decided we have to have an empty shop space that we can inhabit for as long as is necessary. So that was the first sort of part of that challenge. Once Richard found somewhere, he rang me up and said, "Oh, come and look at this." And to be honest, I was horrified at what he found. He basically found a real derelict shop that looked like there had been a bomb in it or something. The ceiling was completely ruined and poured with water, etc. It was a mess. The ceiling was falling in, but it was the best option that we had, actually. So what I had to do was basically rebuild the inside of the shop, especially the ceiling, to make sure it didn't fall down on his head. And then thereafter, as you say, it was all about bringing the detail. And this was really important to us. The first few scenes in the film, including here in Sean and Cynthia's house, were really important, because that's when we're going to sell the period. That's when we're going to make the audience believe that this is 1983. So I was very conscious of the fact that if we didn't really get the mood right, or the period right, early on in the first 10, 15 minutes of the film, that we would already have lost the audience. They'd be like, where are we, what's going on? So with regards to the shop, we spent an awful lot of time researching all the products that would have been around in that period. So we had, without naming too many names, we had things like sort of Weetabix, and we found a Weetabix box from 1983, and it has on it, I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with football, and how on the side of the box was a wee sort of footballer emblazoned on the side, and all these sort of things, all these sort of product things from the period. So we spend an awful lot of time researching them and then trying to track them down. Once we get them, we replicate the box or the product, whatever it is, to put it into the background. And although maybe in some of the shots they might be quite wide and you can't quite see the detail, if you were to get up close, it is it is authentic. They're authentic products, but they're copies of those products. We have things like marathon bars instead of Snickers and all that kind of stuff, and just things like, I don't know, fries, chocolate cream, whatever they're called. I mean, the packaging is very different now to what it was then. Kit Kat's packaging is different. So it's about getting the packaging right. And people, it's very dear to people's hearts, that, because people have fond memories of certain sweets or certain drinks that they drank, and so it's quite interesting. And everyone comes in and they pick up the punch and go, "Oh, I remember when we had these." So it's quite good fun that you get a nice response off the cast and crew to these things. But yeah, it was a lot of work, and it was a worry at one point, actually, because I went, "Oh, how many products do you need to fill a shop?" It can get quite.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
It is quite a lot.